Hey everyone, welcome to another entry in the Hyrule Compendium, and we have been called out. One of our regular viewers by the name of Buck Reviewer commented and said that it seems like we dog on Breath of the Wild a lot, and that it seems like we don't like it. But the truth is, we love this game. I think we both said it would be on the Mount Rushmore of Zelda games.
Yeah, I think that's as big as praise as you can get, I think.
So we thought, let's take some time and just make this video a love letter to all the things we appreciate about Breath of the Wild, the things we love about it.
I'll start off, and I've talked about this in some previous compendiums, but I think Breath of the Wild has the best introductory area in any of the Zelda games, in any video game I've played. I think the Great Plateau, it's such a perfect introduction because it gives you a taste of everything you're going to experience in the game. Right away, there's combat that could be considered difficult. If you go, like, depending on which direction you go to, you can fight a stone talus right at the beginning of the game. You experience different elements because there's that water area. You go into the snow, you realize you're too cold. Immediately, your survival instincts have to kick in. It's large enough, but it's not overwhelmingly large, where, it takes quite a bit to explore, and it just feels wide open. In the grand scheme of things, it's such a small section of the world. And you got the 4 sort of mini dungeons with the 4 sort of introductory shrines. You get almost all of your abilities right then and there. Right away, it becomes a sandbox game of, there's this metal block in the water, and you can use it to kill bokoblins, and there's explosions. And the Greatest Plateau is the best introductory region, I think.
My first thing, it's the thing that initially struck me about the game, so it's going to be my first thing. But I love the art direction of the game entirely, from both the music and the art style. I actually think this is my favorite art style of any Zelda game. They change it up every Zelda game, but this feels like blending a lot of different ideas that we've seen in Zelda art styles. It's not like Skyward Sword, but it's similar to Skyward Sword. It's got Koroks fit in this game, so you can see the Wind Waker-y elements. Wolf Link looks normal in this game. It just feels like the culmination of Zelda art styles. And I think it's the pinnacle. Mm-hmm. It also helps that it's the newest and on the best console, so everything probably looks better graphically than it ever could have been. Same thing with the music. I think it's one of the strongest soundtracks. I liked the use of instrumentation in this. I like the sparseness of it, but I also love the final moments of the game.
It's such a grand soundtrack too. I got the soundtrack the other day. It's 5 discs or something.
Yeah,
I have 300 tracks or something.
I think people don't actually realize how much there actually is. They say, there's not a soundtrack, but there's actually a lot. That's the first thing I noticed about this game, is that it's one of the most beautiful Zelda games.
That's it. The second thing on my list is a very specific thing, but it is the paraglider. Anytime I'm going downhill, there's no such thing as running downhill. I don't even shield surf. Gotta go to the highest elevation and paraglide down. Even if it's such a little slope, I always try to get a jump and paraglide.
Yeah, it feels so second nature just to start doing that.
It feels so good. I like that you get it very early on in the game, and how height is such an important factor in this game with climbing and whatnot. I always try to get to the highest location, because even if I've got to get somewhere, I always want to paraglide. I know we've had the Deku Leaf in Wind Waker had a similar effect, and in Minish Cap you used the Ezlo's cap.
Yeah.
But this one took it to a whole new level.
It works so much better than the other ones, I think. This you have stamina, but instantly recharges. You know,
Yeah.
Echo Leaf is like, I'm out of magic.
Yeah, and you had more limited usages of the Deco Leaf, whereas the Paraglider is one of the most used items in Zelda history.
And there's so many mechanics around it. You can like light the grass on fire and paraglide up and attack stuff. They make great use of it, and the mobility is awesome. Okay, so my second thing, it's something that I've always really wanted from a Zelda game that I feel like they haven't really provided, and that is a lot of towns that are like populated with people. And this really had that, and it had different kinds of towns. You know, it had like a Gerudo town and a Goron type city and Rito, but then it had multiple like locations with like Hylians and stuff like that. And yeah, they all had like side quests in them. They had shops and stuff like that, and they all felt distinct. They all had great music, which I already mentioned I love.
The last two console Zelda games in particular, this was a letdown, because you had Twilight Princess, where Ordon was populated with a bunch of people.
Yes, good town.
Yeah, decent town. You went to Kakariko, and there was not many people there.
Mm-hmm.
You went to Castletown, which was flourishing, but it felt empty because you couldn't talk to anybody, and there was only one or two notable NPCs in there, maybe a few more, and then that was it. Because you went to like the Goron area, it's not really much of a town. Lake Hylia is kind of deserted. There's nothing in the desert. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the other regions were empty. And then with Skyward Sword, there was Skyloft, which was another vibrant town, but that was the only town in the game.
And the justification I saw a lot was, well, down on the surface, Hylians hadn't come down yet and settled it. But it's like, we see some civilizations down there, but they don't really have towns, you know what I mean? Breath of the Wild has, I think, the best of both worlds, where you have this, like, wilderness that, you know, there's ruins from, you know, towns that have been destroyed, and it does sometimes feel like Zelda 1, where it's like, oh, I'm out in the wilderness, there's monsters everywhere, there's guardians, there's Lynels, but then there's like civilization. So I like it because it has both the things I like about Zelda, and that blends in with the first topic I said of, it's got the towns, it's got the overworld, it's got the music and the look. It's just like Breath of the Wild tagline, back in the box, a cool place to hang out.
My favorite thing about Breath of the Wild, I'm sort of piggybacking off this. It's sort of the scope of some of the regions of the game. When you think of fire-based towns or regions in some of the prior Zelda games, in Skyward Sword there's a few Mogma underneath the ground, but it was a small real region, and there's not much going on there. In Twilight Princess in particular, right outside the Goron mines, there's like nothing going on there. There's like a small little oasis or something, and there's a bunch of Gorons just standing around. Didn't really feel very vibrant, and you were always so isolated because you were surrounded by mountains, but you couldn't go anywhere. With Breath of the Wild, you have a whole pathway that leads to Goron City. It's sort of like a journey to get there. You're not locked in to a narrow path, and the world just seems so much bigger. Even though the towns themselves might not necessarily be huge, they just feel bigger.
Yeah.
Because of the way you can leave the town in any direction, and how they're sort of built into the world, as opposed to sort of not just isolated as, oh, there's like a screen transition and suddenly you're inside a town.
You got the guys mining, like you said. You've got traders in between the oasis.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Rito going to those areas around Rito Village. They found a way to like make everyone interact with the actual world.
The towns and the worlds just didn't feel isolated a little bit. To me, one of my favorite moments of the game were when I was first approaching Zora's domain. That was the first of the dungeon areas that I went to. You can tell you're in this water region, but then you see Zora's domain from a distance, and it's like a long walkway to get there, and it just feels so large and epic. And I think that's what this game was all about, a lot of it, the scope of it.
They intentionally designed a lot of areas so you can see the rest of the world, you know.
Yeah.
You can be on the other end of the map and still see like a divine beast that's on the other end of the map. That's really good design, I think. Out of all of this, I don't know if it's my favorite compared to the other two, but I like that Breath of the Wild introduced a new control system, specifically for the combat, because I feel like in past Zelda games, especially 3D, it's not very challenging, but it's also like they give you a lot of cool moves that you can pull off, but there's not much strategy, I feel like, to doing them.
For 90% of the enemies, you can just press sword, 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 and you'll kill them. Or you have to use, like in Wind Waker, the parry attack. Or in Breath of the Wild, some of the hidden skills where
Twilight Princess.
Yeah, and Twilight Princess, the hidden skills where they can't do anything about it.
In Breath of the Wild, they give you so many different options, and it's not just as simple as press a button. It's kind of tough. Like, I'm still not even really good at it, you know?
Yeah, this is one of the first Zelda games where, especially early on in your quest, you see certain enemies, or you see a Bokoblin camp. Oh, you see a bunch of blue or black Bokoblins, the higher level ones, and you're like, I don't want any part of that. The difficulty of basic enemies early on in the game is really hard. Not when you're super overpowered, but like if you progress through the game normally, fighting Guardians or Lynels, even today, that's a challenge.
And even with Lynels and Guardians, there are so many approaches you could take.
Oh yeah.
If you want to shoot him in the eye, if you want to chop Guardian legs off, you can. That's the same approach they took with puzzles too, where it's like they just give you the tools right away in the beginning, and then you can come to a shrine, and there are still some I'm seeing online of people solving things in ways I didn't imagine. So the controls, they give you that freedom to approach combat and puzzles in such an open way. So Breath of the Wild, it's
a pretty good game.
It's a pretty good game.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things about it.
It's on the Mount Rushmore of Zelda games, no question. What do y'all think? Do you think we praise the right things? Let's not get negative. Let's talk.
We're all positive here.
All positive. We'll never say anything bad about it again. Let us know some of your favorite things about the game. Maybe if we didn't mention them. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. You can subscribe for more videos by Zelda Dungeon. And thanks for watching.